Welcome, and thank you for joining this session of Innovation Institute 2021. With nearly 50 sessions available through the summer, we know you'll be discovering new skills, strategies, and resources to transform the teaching and learning in your classroom, and we would love to hear from you. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to visit the Town Hall in Attendify to connect with the attendees through the activity stream or community features. If you would like a certificate of attendance for attending this session, you will find the request form linked at the end of the session description in Attendify. Thank you, and enjoy this session from one of our amazing Innovation Institute presenters.
Hey everyone, we are live. I'm AJ Juliani here. We're going to get started in just about 3-4 minutes, letting people come and roll in here as we are live. Love to see you guys just share where you're from, what your role is in the chat over there on the side right there. Share your name, role, and what school or organization. Right in the chat right there. So we're going to get started in just a couple of minutes here, making sure everybody can get into the room. So make sure you're introducing yourself in the chat. We're going to get started in just about a minute or two here. Really, this is going to be about 45 minutes. I'm going to fly through. You're going to have a chance to get all the slides, all the resources. We are completely talking about how to shift your school's instruction, assessment, and curriculum in a virtual learning environment. We know what's going on right now in our world. Pretty much everybody is working from home. There is a tremendous amount of stress put on teachers and parents and kids, and by far school leaders as well, as we kind of navigate this. And so I just want to share a couple of practical things. Don't got all the answers, don't have all the answers by a long shot, all right? But definitely going to be sharing some things that I've done in my kind of roles as a school leader, that I've seen work in schools around the country and around the world, and just some practical things to think about. I have no doubt that all of you are already going forward with this and doing the best that you can. And so we're just going to be really talking about what does that look like to keep on moving that process forward. All right. So if you didn't have a chance yet and you're just popping in right now, it is 1 minute after the top of the hour from wherever you are, whatever time zone you're in. We got people from all over the world here. And also, there will be a recording of this. So if you have to pop out, if something comes up, if your internet goes down, for any reason, you will get an email probably about 1 to 2 hours after the presentation. And it's an automated email, comes from Webinar Jam, and you'll get an email with all the slides and the resources and all that kind of stuff as well. All right. So before we begin, obviously everybody's on mute today. There's way too many people. This is not like a Zoom with 7 or 8 people here. Right now, it looks like we've got 663 school leaders in the room. And so we'll be having the chat running the entire time. Look, there's no magic bullets here. There is no instructional manual for what we're going through right now, right? I think I just want to be able to have at least once a week some types of practical things to share out with all different types of people, teachers, school leaders, instructional coaches, parents as well. And so this looks different with every situation, right? You may be a rural school district or an urban school district or a private school or a suburban school district. It looks different, big, small, what kind of devices your students have, if they even have devices. And so the kind of 5 steps that I'm going to take apply to a lot of different situations. We're going to talk about what that looks like. I do want to say, and I saw this from Michelle Baldwin, I love that she's coming from a perspective as a school leader and from a perspective as a parent, which is exactly where I'm at as well. And, she's kind of just saying, let's all take a breath. And I think that there is so much pressure. And if you're in this webinar right now, you know that pressure right now. There's a lot of pressure on people to do a good job with this, to keep the learning going, to support all the different types of households that we need to support, of all the different types of kids' learning environments that we need to support. And so I'm just telling all of you as school leaders to take a breath for yourself as well, right? And if you can only pick up, say, 1-2 things out of this webinar, then for me, that is a huge, huge win, right? To spend 45 minutes learning with some other folks and picking up even just one or two things. I think Ken Buck put it perfectly. I had a webinar for teachers around Genius Hour and project-based learning. And I just said, listen, basically every educator, every school, just Apollo 13 this problem. All right. We've got kids learning, kids being fed, all different types of things. And it is just amazing to see how schools have come together, how leadership teams have rallied with teachers, with parents, with support staff, and everybody has come together to really be present in this moment. And as Shannon just said as well, and then to have kids at home. You know, I've got 4 kids at home as well. What is it like to and I think Ken puts it, we're doing the best that we can, right? And so we continue to learn from each other if we share these ways. So one of the things that you're going to have is free access to everything you see in this webinar. All the resources that I share, all those different types of things you're going to have free access to. That means the slides, PD Cert, online platforms that we're sharing, the resources, all that kind of stuff. And at the end, and you could take down it as well, but if your school wants to have a specific call, I'm doing free calls all through the next couple of weeks. You can sign up at ajjuliani.com, call, and we could talk specifically through your situation. Right? So if you don't know me, if you just kind of happen to stumble upon this webinar, I'm a school leader. I'm an author. I've written a number of books about education, launch, empower, inquiry and innovation in the classroom, intentional innovation in the classroom, the PBL playbook, a number of different books. And I've had lots of different roles in education. So I started off as a middle school and high school teacher at Wissahickon School District, where we went one-to-one very early on with technology. I became a K-12 instructional coach, a K-12 technology staff developer, where we shifted a lot of our professional learning online in a game-based way. I then moved to Upper Perkiomen School District, and that is where I started my administrative school leader role, being in charge of the curriculum at Upper Perkiomen School District, K-12, the technology and the instructional technology, K-12. We were one of the first 10 school districts in the country to be recognized by the White House for using open education resources and being a Go Open school district and really shifting to a virtual learning environment. From there, I moved to be the Director of Technology Innovation and eventually the Director of Learning Innovation for Centennial School District, where we have a complete cyber school in place and all different types of virtual learning and blended learning opportunities with our students. I also got my master's at Drexel University in global and international education. It was a complete distance learning program with people from all over the world. And currently I teach courses for the University of Pennsylvania Graduate School of Education, and they're all online courses for UPenn GSE, for the Penn Literacy Network, including one that I'm teaching right now called Technology with a Purpose. I get to speak with schools and educators all over the country, all over the world. I was slated to actually go and speak in a Middle East country. Obviously, that got postponed. But, you know, I really want to be able to share some of the things that I've learned in those roles and some of the things I'm just learning right now that are coming up in this situation. And yes, I have 4 kids of my own. These are my 4 kids pre-quarantine. All right. And so as a parent, I'm thinking about this as well. I kind of always come back as a school leader to what are we preparing kids for? And when you look at what in 2017, the Small Business Owners of America and the Fortune 500 CEOs are saying these are the specific things: problem solving skills. That's almost the highest one is problem solving skills, which is what we're all doing right now, right? Communication skills. What does it look like written, verbally? Leadership, initiative. This is what we're preparing kids for. And so when I think back to this quote, and the first time I saw this quote, we're currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist using technology I haven't invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. I was just very much like, what? There's going to be doctors and lawyers and teachers and engineers. But the longer I've been in education, and especially in our current environment right now, I mean, think about it. We're currently doing a job that did not exist when we were in school, right? There is no way that the technologies that we're using right now were around or even thought about when we were in school. And right now, all of us are collectively trying to solve a problem that we did not know would impact all of us, a problem that we never could have predicted. And yet with all of that, I think we don't want to go away from the principles of learning engagement. They've been the same for a very long time. If Aristotle wanted to have an engaged learning experience, he'd have his pupils do social, human, meaning-centered, and language-based type of learning. It doesn't matter if it's in person or virtual. It doesn't matter if it's in synchronous or asynchronous. This is the principles of learning and engagement. If we want kids to learn, if we want to shift our instruction, our assessment, our curriculum, we have to have their attention. The only way we can get kids to learn, the only way we can get staff bought in of what this looks like is to have their attention. We have the world's attention right now. And so what we're going to cover in this webinar is how do we shift in a virtual environment? How do we shift things like instruction? What does that look like, especially with all different types of technology needs and access that we have in place? What does assessment look like? Like we prepare if this happens again, or if we continue to have this type of a learning environment, how can we prepare our curriculum to be able to be adaptable and shiftable, right? So I think one of the places that I want to start, right? One of the places that I want to start is what we should kind of do and what we shouldn't do, right? So kind of like these online instructors for KIS, I thought they broke down some really smart things of what we should be focusing on, right? So the first thing is asynchronous learning is very powerful when we're shifting to virtual. When we have synchronous learning, it can be a mess. If we are expecting students to show up at a certain time and have synchronous learning, it's very hard. We can expect teachers to show up and have office hours. We can expect teachers to show up and have morning meetings. I've seen lots of schools, including our school, being able to kind of do that like twice a day, having teachers show up. And if kids want to get on there and talk with their teachers, and a lot of them do, they will be there. But it's very hard to require students in virtual, any type of environment, specifically virtual environment, to have synchronous learning opportunities. We want it to be asynchronous as much as possible. Less is more, right? Assignments take twice as long to complete at home because of all different types of factors. And so we don't want to be unrealistic. We don't want to assign stuff every single day of the week. We want to give kind of a week-long or 2-week-long, this is what you need to do over a week or 2 weeks. Sometimes they'll spend a lot more time on Tuesday than they will on Wednesday, depending on what's happening at their house. So less is more. We want to really prioritize and be realistic about what students get done. Explicit instructions, right? We have to outline deliberately the length of time to complete different types of things, and especially what is expected of our students when we shift instruction and assessment online and we shift it into virtual. Whether it's handed out in a packet or it's an online thing, it's got to be very explicit because there's not going to be a whole lot of time to ask a lot of questions. We want to make sure that we specify the expectations and not be too open-ended, all right? It doesn't mean that we can't have tasks that have some different choice and variety, but we want to be very specific about what it looks like, especially in terms of them turning in stuff and doing tasks. We also want to be empathetic. I can't stress this. It's probably the biggest piece of this puzzle as school leaders. We have to be empathetic with our teachers. We have to be empathetic with our colleagues. We have to be empathetic with our parents. Everybody is going through a situation that they're not necessarily prepared for. We don't want to be overly task-oriented. We really want to understand and be very open to lots of different ways of kids doing learning and families doing learning. The communication, the consistent communication is probably the most important thing. And so we want to keep 1 or 2 platforms that we use, right? So I was looking at Bill Selleck's school out in California, and for K through 5, they're just using Seesaw as their main platform. For grades 6 through 12, they're just using Google Classroom. That's where the communication comes. That's where the work goes. It's every single day at a certain time. Teachers are popping on. Every single day, they know it's the work is coming out. And so it's a very consistent communication in one platform, right? 1 or 2 platforms to think about. Being online for office hours is so important, but we don't want teachers standing by 24/7, responding to every email right away and leaving no break for yourself. Same thing for you as a school leader, right? We have kids at home. We have to juggle all of this. How can we set specific office hours to provide support, answer questions, clarify confusion via a system, right? And office hours are really nice in some of the tools that we're going to talk about because they can be done video or audio, call in. So if you don't have a computer at home, you can call in. You can write emails in for office hours, those different types of things. it clarifies the confusion when you have a system of when office hours are happening. We want to seek student feedback, right? So we want to seek student feedback about their workload and their preferences and their learning pace. And we want to consistently ask, at least on a weekly basis, for their feedback on how things are going. We also want to boost learning retention by having some multimedia materials, right? Some digital tools that can create interactive lessons. And we'll talk about those tools in one of the steps here today. There are going to be times where you can try new and unused tools. And I think it is something that right now should be done with a little bit of hesitation, right? If you have somebody who's a bit tech savvy and they're going to try something out on their own, then do it very empathetically and saying this may not work out. But these new tools should you over the next year or so we can blend them into virtual learning in the future. Right now, you want to use tried and true if you have those in your school or organization and use those tools. Finally, we want to really specifically focus on intentional and clear learning objectives and assessment outcomes, both formative and summative, right? We don't want to give just random activities to keep students busy. That's not helping anybody. We want to be very specific and tie it to our curriculum that we already have and standards that we already have and resources that we already have or that we can find that connect. So how do we do all this, right? How do we do all those things without feeling like we're hanging on for dear life here? Because I know that's what many of us, me included, that's what I'm feeling like. And so I think these 5 steps will kind of walk us through what that looks like. So the first step is surveying your community, right? So this is very important for school leaders of any type of thing. We want to be able to communicate with our community and see what their measures are for success and achievement. See what they care about, all right? Because every community is different. And so just assuming the things that they care about right now in the midst of this, my son is in 2nd grade and his teacher sent out a short Google form and just asked us, what are ways that I can support you at home? What are things I could be doing more of? What are resources that are working for you at home? She's asking us, what would success look like each day for your kid at home? And not every parent's going to respond and different people are going to have different perspectives. But for that teacher, she's now understanding, okay, this is what the 27 kids in my class, this is what their households are looking for. This is what the measures of success during this time in a virtual learning environment, this is what they're looking towards, right? This is specifically about design thinking process, right? When you start with that empathy muscle and you're surveying your community, you're starting with design thinking, right? Design thinking is about never being perfect, but always getting better. And only to get better at virtual learning, we have to ask these questions. So if you think about design thinking, there's lots of different phases for this that we can use as school leaders. This is the IDEO design thinking framework. There's the Stanford D-School design thinking framework. And then there's a launch process that John and I put together, the launch cycle for design thinking. You want to start with look, listen, and learning, looking at the situation that we have, listening to your staff, asking them what's working, what's not working, and learning from other people, like the people that are in this webinar right now about what's working. Only then will you have the empathy to start going out and asking questions. And really, this is one of the biggest things that we want to do is start to ask questions about what's working, what's not working. We should be asking our staff every single day, how are you doing? How can I support? What do you need? How can I support? What do you need? Every single day. And as we start to ask those questions of our community and our staff, we start to understand the processes that we have to put into place or the process that we have to tweak or the problems that we really have are out there. Then we can start navigating ideas and come up with ideas and prototypes of new things to put in place, but only after starting from that place of empathy. Then we begin to highlight and fix. So here's what it looks like, step 1 for a school. You want to look for an opportunity of new measures of growth and achievement this year, all right? What does it look like? We don't have state tests, thank goodness, all right? We don't have a lot of those typical measures of growth and achievement that we would have. So what does it look like now? Then ask questions. Ask questions of your community and your staff. Get some feedback of what that looks like. Then we come to an understanding of what the real problems you're trying to solve, and we brainstorm and navigate potential ideas for those innovative solutions, all right? After then, we create a solution, outline what it could be for now, and in the future when we have some more time on our hands to really build it out and make it adaptable and flexible. And then throughout this entire, whatever it is, month, 2 month, however long it is, we highlight what works and we focus on what needs to change and improve. We continue highlighting what works and focus on what needs to change and improve. That is going through that design thinking process as a leader, which leads us to our second step. And the second step is making your curriculum an adaptable and organic guide, less a static document. Because as the world and virtual learning environments have changed, how much time we get to be with our kids, what we can do in class, what their measures are, we really have to think about our curriculum as something that's adaptable, something that's living, breathing organically. Here's where we use design thinking again. All right. So we use this framework again to start with the empathy and really define what we have to focus on, come with ideas, and go through a prototype. This look, guys. All right. We're going to come up with understand the students, review the curriculum, gather inspiration of what other people are doing. I'm going to have lots of resources for you to do that. Then we'll kind of come up with the resources, explore new ways we can teach on the virtual learning, and refine those ideas. We continue moving through the curation, the prototype, and try and reflect phase. This looks like this every year. A typical curriculum process may have you just looking at your language arts once every 5 years, every 4 years. Design thinking says, no, every single year, how can we empathize, ideate, curate, prototype over and over again? And what does it look like to pull those resources? When we focus on this process, we start to really kind of look at a shift from traditional, because you really can't do traditional learning in a virtual learning environment, to more of a project-based learning, which is much more doable in a virtual learning environment. We're focusing here on problem solving for the curriculum, interdisciplinary, working to discover instead of receive, and showing and demonstrating that understanding. What are some tools where you could do this in? All right, so just if you're a Google Apps school district or a Microsoft 365 school district, here's what it looks like. I'll show you some exact kind of examples of what it looks like. I'm going to share my screen here in the window. So this is what it looks like in grade 5 here, right? So this is what a living, breathing document will look like. This is a grade 5 math. You can see it has a link to prerequisites here and pre-tests that you could do. It is completely done in Understanding by Design, but I want you to see it is all editable in Google Docs. And as you get down here, it has performance tasks. Those things are linked in there, right? Other different types of evidence. In the learning plan, it has specific things for the teachers to do. Recommended lessons, all different types of things. And so if a teacher had access to this, it wouldn't be completely hard or impossible to plan what some of these virtual learning lessons would look like, because they have access to all these, which are connected, right? Additional resources, they're all connected in this living, breathing document here. What does it look like for a high school? I'll show you exactly what it looks like here. Same type of thing. Now this is living, breathing document. Things are hyperlinked. There's unit summaries. You could scroll here and see kind of the written things. You can have comments, but here, all of the evaluative criteria is linked, right? All of the evidence is linked here of what students can do. The key learning events and instruction is all linked in here. It is living, breathing, and adaptable for the teachers. That's what we're looking for. So after we kind of move our curriculum that way, we shift to step 3. How can we move assessment to performance-based tasks instead of just multiple choice tests online? And this is where some key resources come into play, right? Because we want students doing performance-based tasks to demonstrate their understanding, not just doing multiple choice assessments, right? Understanding that there's a time and place for both, especially when you want to do pre and post assessments. Sometimes maybe those multiple choice ones work well, but we really want to have them performance based. So at the elementary level, here's some different ones that our school districts are doing here, right? Here's some different things that our kids are all doing in a virtual learning environment, whether it's the box project or the Better Playground project. All of these you're going to have access to at the end. Don't worry about it. You're going to have access to every single one of these projects. But for example, look at this box project. Almost every single kid right now at home is going to have a cardboard box. And so if you have a K-1-2 kid and you want to have a week-long project that connects to math, language arts, and science, here's a performance-based project that kids can do to actually show their demonstration and connect to these standards right here. If you're looking at grades 3 through 5, one of the best projects that our kids are doing in our school right now is this dream vacation project. All right. So everybody's stuck at home. What a better time to plan a dream vacation. You could do this grades 3 up through 6. They get a budget, a real world budget. It's cross-curricular. They can connect to a bunch of different subjects, math, ELA, science, social studies. They're doing research, allocating resources, calculating cost of trips, learning geography and climate, all those different types of things connecting to standards. Now they're not just in a virtual learning environment, reading things, watching videos, and answering a quiz. They're actually curating, researching, and creating something, a performance-based task. What does this look like at middle school and high school? We want to personalize how that learning happens, right? So English are types of projects. You're going to have access to every single one of them here. One of the ones that I really like right now, if they're reading an independent novel or they're reading a book from the school or a literature circle, create a press release, right? That press release connects to all types of standards as well. Looking at viral videos, choosing specifically the viral video. You're going to have access to this project and the whole platform to get your hands into what this looks like for students as well. Social studies, service learning projects, all right, history-themed blogs, whiteboard videos, all different types of things that they can create at home, right? For lots of different age groups. We've got stuff on here for K through 12 that you're going to have access to here at the end of the webinar when you get access to the link. For math, there's lots of different performance tasks that you can do for math. I've seen lots of students creating board games or creating scratch games or tutorial videos, right? Here are two of the ones that I really like that our students have done this year. Spotify a song, right? A grade 5 looking at fraction of division, using real data on the Spotify plays to kind of look at like money managers determine how much they can earn through streaming music. An older project here, the Game of Life. Again, a perfect one in this situation. Financial literacy project, keeping it real, connecting to the math and really having a performance-based task. In science, lots of different things they could be doing from home right now. Solar energy projects with tinfoil, Mythbuster projects, all those different types of things. Just some specific ones that our kids are doing that they're really liking right now. The Ebola, the virus one is one that is kind of a big one. A lot of people are doing the Take Action project of what that looks like for climate as well. So just lots of different ideas of what you can do to shift that assessment from just being multiple choice to now having performance-based, where kids can demonstrate their understanding of content and standards, connecting to your curriculum, connecting to the standards, and being able to share that out. A big kind of shift as we move instruction and assessment and curriculum. Step 4 are the specific tools. These are by far not all the tools that you can use, but these are ones that I've seen work really well in my schools and districts that I've worked with, and specifically in ones that are working right now, right? How can you make instruction collaborative and engaging, whether it's in person or it's blended or completely virtual? So taking this idea of the teacher as the guide on the side, right? Or the school leader as the guide on the side, and moving it to saying, no, we're actually going to be the guide on the ride. We're along for the learning journey. Our two main focus in virtual learning environments are giving kids a plan and calling them to action. And if you are a school leader, your two main things, your two main focus with your teachers is giving them a plan and calling them to action. You want to be there when the plan doesn't go as well as we think it was going to be, or the action needs some help and support along the way. That's where we're along for the learning journey. We're a guide on the ride. We are right next to them, just like you would be if you were learning how to drive. You're not just giving them the keys and say, hey, go ahead, figure it out. Here's a GPS. You're sitting right next to the person working alongside of them. That's the role here. Some specific tools for communication and conferencing. Again, any one of these tools. If you're a Microsoft district, you're using Skype. If you are a Google district, you're using Google Meet. I see lots of folks using Zoom. Any one of these tools are great for getting people to be able to talk and video chat. But the really nice thing is that any one of these tools also have call in. So for those kids or teachers or anybody with bad internet connection, slow Wi-Fi, I know my Wi-Fi has been slowed with 4 kids on devices and those different types of things, you also can call in, right? What are these really good for, though, in the classroom? They're perfect for student conferences. Having feedback conferences, right? There's 3 different types of student conferences, and I would say there's 3 different types of staff conferences you could do as well. There's feedback conferences where the teacher's answering questions and the kids are asking questions. There's reflection conferences. Now the teacher's asking questions and the kids are answering them. And then there's mastery conferences where you're going back and forth. These types of things can happen on those video platforms. One of the things I was sharing with teachers earlier in the week is a really fun game to play if you have kids Zooming or Google hanging out together or Skype discussion. Because sometimes, and if you've been on a Zoom recently or a video call recently, you've seen that it can get very awkward of who's going to talk when and what that looks like. And so if you have cards and you can hold up the color cards, the discussion flows a lot better. Now the teacher is the facilitator and they're calling on different cards, their review and answer their questions. The discussion game is a really fun one, and you'll have access to that as well. The virtual fishbowl. Now we have 25 kids in a room or 30 staff in a room, but you just want to have 4 of them talk, and the rest are going to listen for about 5 minutes. Then you shift to 4 more people, and they talk for 5 minutes. Then you shift to 4 more people. So the focus for the main part of the group is just watching, listening, taking notes, coming up with questions to ask after the fact, and the 4 people or 3 people that are talking, they're in the kind of fishbowl talking. What are some different tools for collaborating, right? Lots of different ones. Again, I start with the main 2. You're probably either a Google Apps district or a Microsoft 365 district. Use those tools first, right? There's some other ones that I've seen lots of people using that are free. Definitely right now, Flipgrid, a fantastic way for collaborating, all right? You're able to ask questions, post topics, and have kids from mobile devices share their answers in video format. Flipgrid.com is a fantastic way to get collaborating in a virtual learning environment. For a text-based solution, Parlay is amazing. All right, so just again, parlay.com, you'll get free access, and it's class discussions, but it is all text-based, so it doesn't take up the bandwidth. It can be done asynchronous as well. You give discussion prompts and have free access to what that looks like. All this to be said, here's what you can start to do. You can have peer feedback, right? Peer feedback that's very specific in these types of platforms, right? Using these tools for communication. But you have to have clear expectations, just like what's on the screen right now. It has to be very clear of what partner A is doing, what partner B is doing. You can even have kids do this with the adult in their household, getting peer feedback on the things that they're working on. Tools for delivering instruction, all right? So if you have a learning management system set up, I obviously would just use that. If you have Canvas or Schoology or Google Classroom or Desire to Learn or Blackboard or all the different types of ones out there, you want to focus on what the kids already know and the parents are already really accustomed to. Using the learning management system and just that as the hub is a really great way of keeping that consistency. Seesaw is perfect, especially for K through 8, all right? It gives family members access. Teachers and students can have different access, and it keeps it very clean, cohesive in the class, a complete management system, and a complete delivery and instruction system for teachers and students and families. If you want to start using some other tools that'll help you, both Nearpod and Pear Deck are ones where you could take your existing PowerPoint or Keynote slides or Google Slides, and you can make them interactive so that in a virtual learning environment, kids can answer questions on their own time and also see the answers of other folks in Nearpod and Pear Deck, 2 very powerful tools for doing kind of that interactive online presentations. And then if you want to have some fun, you want to get kids answering some quizzes, answering some questions, having some competitions, you can use Kahoot, Quizzes, or my favorite, GimKit. All right, all there, and we'll have links to all of them on the resource page for you to check out. Just really some fun things that you can embed into your learning management to engage and get that collaboration going in the instruction. What about tools for planning and organizing? And I think this is you're going to hear me say it all the time. Go back to your tried and true, your Google Apps, your Microsoft 365. Go back to your tried and true, start from there. We really like using Trello as a planning board for teachers, right? Kind of talking about what you're doing, what's in progress. You can share all kinds of links to resources up there and really break down what that looks like. You also can have kids use Trello when they're planning out their projects and want to communicate what action steps or timeline or things that they need to get done. And then Slack. Most of the business world uses Slack because a lot of the business world works remotely. And Slack is a way that you can talk on any type of device, any platform. And it's just much more user friendly. And it's almost kind of like texting and emailing and social media combined, but in a very much shared space just for your team or organization. I highly recommend Slack, especially for remote learning. Step 5. So what kind of resources to use, right? What resources can we have? And so I think there's a really good combo here to use open education resources. Again, when we were selected by the White House to be a Go Open Ambassador school district, we worked with many different schools and districts, pointing them in the direction of Go Open free resources they could use for virtual learning or in-person learning or blended learning. And adaptable activities and projects. Notice to say adaptable. These are pre-made. Hopefully a teacher's made them versus a company, but they're adaptable activities. So they're not just PDFs that you can't edit, but they're editable activities and projects that you can make your own as teachers. A couple different places that I would start. Definitely the OER Commons if you're looking for all different types of a public digital library of resources. Everything is here. It has gotten better and better each month, each year as it has been open. It's a fantastic hub for digital learning resources. One of the links that you're going to have on the virtual learning hub that I'm going to send you is to Summit Learning. Summit has fantastic, fully built out virtual that you can share out. Everything's built in Google Docs, units that have performance-based tasks, they have rubrics, everything already built in, specific lesson plans for teachers, but it's all adaptable, all right? It's not just for older kids as well. It goes all the way down to 4th grade, so 4th through 12th grade, full units all built out in all different types of curriculum. Next lesson, you're going to get access to Next Lesson. Next Lesson has amazing, all of those different projects that I was sharing earlier, right? The financial literacy project, all those different ones that I was sharing, K through 12 of the performance-based tests, they all were from Next Lesson. And you're going to have access to Next Lesson as well to kind of dive into it. The great thing about Next Lesson is they're all adaptable resources. You can go in and change them and make them your own. And so you also want to think about the assessment thing, right? Using things like the GRIT assessment, which you're going to have access to that has it's a process-oriented rubric. Instead of focusing on just the final result of what kids are doing from home, focus on their learning process here. And also built-in rubrics that are connected to the standards, right? You want to have them. And so all of the resources that we're going to provide have rubrics attached to them for those performance-based tasks. But what about a couple of the big questions that I think folks have, right? And we're just starting to dive into these questions here, right? What about the lack of online access? This is a huge one, right? I think so many communities are struggling with this. We want to move into a virtual learning environment, but we've got all different types of kids that maybe have access to a device, maybe don't. Maybe it's a mobile device, maybe they don't have high-speed internet. There's all different types of things. You have options here though, right? So I want you to think about these different dimensions of virtual learning, right? These different types of models. You have options of what this looks like. You have to be very specific though when you're working with your staff and you know what your community is like of what type of options. If you're sending the learning home, right? So you sent learning home. Well, you're probably going to be doing a unit or a lesson that's obviously on a modified schedule. You're transforming the traditional instruction because the teacher is just supporting the instruction from a distance. It's mostly independent learning. It's mostly school mentoring support. And there's kind of an instructional help desk model where if you need help, you're going to reach out via email or via an office hour, right? That's what it looks like when you send the learning home. If you have the technology, if your kids have access to technology, now you could do an entire course. You could have a very fixed or modified schedule. You can enhance that instruction. The teacher could lead the instruction sometimes, oftentimes supporting the instruction. Sometimes if every kid has access to technology, a teacher can even drive or guide the learning, right? And so you're really thinking about what that looks like. And if you're learning without technology, then you're going to miss some of those different types of things that you could do if every kid had a device. And so you have to really think about the different models here and being very specific. A couple key things to think about, though, with lack of online access. Number one, use platforms that are mobile friendly. Any type of platform that you want to use, Zoom, Google Meet, Skype, it's all mobile friendly. You can do it from a smartphone, and you don't even have to do the video. You can just call into the number. And so even if you have low Wi-Fi or no Wi-Fi, you still can call in. Have kids still do work on paper. They still need to be sketching, using their hands, getting into stuff, you going outside. Have them do work on paper as well. You want to have less print options, right? And more copy down options where they get something they can see and they can copy down and write in a notebook or something like that. They don't have to print everything out. And then give choices on how to do the work, right? Specifically, think about your community, your class, what choices they need. Then think about the time constraints, right? So I think time constraints are pretty important here. And yes, you're going to get a link to share this webinar with your entire staff. You'll have a replay that anybody can sign into and get access. Time constraints, rethink due dates. When you go to virtual learning, you want longer time to do the work and more of a variety of when that work can be turned in. Do more of check-ins, virtual or email, right? The daily check-ins. I'm telling you, kids love to see the faces of their teachers, and teachers want to see your faces as school leaders as well. It just needs to be consistent. It doesn't have to be a lot. If you had all of your teachers do a morning meeting between 8:30 a.m. and 9 a.m. and then an end of the day meeting from 2:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. and any kid that could call in or could hop on could do that every single day, there's such a consistent power to those check-ins. Rethink the synchronous learning. You don't want to have the focus being everybody has to do everything at the same time. You want to have more asynchronous when you have the time to do it, when you can get the support. What about the curriculum map and standards, right? I was a director of learning and innovation. I've been in charge of an entire curriculum of huge districts. How do we connect to our curriculum map and standards? And so just think about the activities that you're doing. You want to connect to your current curriculum. Hopefully that curriculum becomes adaptable. You want to have connected to research and those major power standards that we're focusing on. You want to choose projects on places like Next Lesson or Summit Learning that align with your curriculum. And a lot of times you want to do a pre and post assessment. You want to see where your kids are before you started that activity or that unit, and then where they were after you did that unit. So what about your specific situation? Because everybody's situation right now is different. I've been on phone calls with over 20 different schools in the past 2 weeks, talking about their specific situation, helping them with plans, walking them through that design thinking process. And I think a lot of times as schools, we feel like, all right, we've got to do this all ourselves. I always use the chef and cook metaphor here because chefs, they start from scratch. They build everything themselves. Meanwhile, cooks follow a recipe. And I think as school leaders here, we're going to be somewhere in the middle. We're not going to follow an exact recipe given to us, but we're not going to create everything from scratch. What we're going to do is cook with innovations. We're going to take the resources that we have at our disposal. We're going to look at other people's plans that they've put together. We're going to pick and choose some things that work for us and create some things that work for us. We're not going to do everything from scratch. You do not have to start from scratch in this process, all right? You don't have to do that, all right? If you could go through the design process faster, I'm willing to help out with that. That's why I'm taking free calls for anybody that wants to go through the design process with me. If it works on your calendar or works on my calendar, let's set it up. Let's have a conversation of what that looks like. If you're not able to do that, I've also got all kinds of resources. So if you go to ajjuliani.com/virtual, you're going to get access to all the resources. Now, when I did this on the webinar on Sunday, it crashed the site. So if a lot of people are going to the site at the same time, sometimes it crashes, but believe me, that website is up. So if you can't get to it now and you can only get to it on a kind of a little bit to get to it, all right? The other piece here is if you want to talk specifically about your situation, you can also go to the ajjuliani.com/call, all right? So check it out right there. I really like as well kind of seeing kind of some of the chat right here and people are getting into here and seeing all the resources. that resources page, the ageofjuliani.com/virtual, is consistently being updated as well. All right. So right now, you can see on the page, you are going to have free access to Next Lesson. Send that out to your teachers. They get thousands of activities, all connected to the standards. It's just fantastic. All right. Really fantastic. You're going to have real school virtual learning hub examples, real plans from other schools. You're going to have rubrics, assessment resources, design sprints, all that kind of stuff. Yes, you're going to receive this presentation in an email. You're going to get the slides to the presentation in an automated email, and you are going to get also the replay and a couple other things as well. So you're going to have access to all of that. All right. So when you pop on that virtual site, you're going to see it looks like this. You'll have a free trial thing, and then it'll go down to all different types of resources there, all different types of resources that you can get your hands on, things that we talked about today. So again, I wanted to do that in 45 minutes. We just did it. All right. I was talking fast. We were flying through, but you'll have access to the slides. Please use them with your staff. Please, hopefully you got one or two things out of here. And so I just want you to think about specifically, there's a lot of also questions. I have to schedule a call. What does this look like with IEPs? My son has an IEP, right? What are the accommodations, modifications? What does that look like, especially with virtual learning, right? Talking specifically about your situation. What does that look like in a school that, when I worked at Upper Perkiomen School District, we had about 25% of our students that didn't have high-speed Wi-Fi in their homes. How can you do it in that type of environment? That's an entire presentation into itself. So look for some more emails from me next week. I'm going to be covering some of those specific questions of how to do this virtual learning with all different types of learners, how to do it without online access. We're going to be doing another webinar next week that's talking about some of those burning questions. So look for that to come out as well. But in the meantime, if you want to schedule a call, it's right there as well. Thank you so much, guys. You're awesome. Love seeing people from Europe and Chile and all over the United States. Please stay safe. And if I could say anything, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for all the work that you guys are doing. Thank you so much for what you're doing for our families every single day. It's really amazing to see. I mean, it gives me chills just seeing how everybody is just pulling together as an education community. So feel free to reach out, ask any questions, and feel free to share this with anybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you for joining this session. To request a certificate of attendance, you can access the link at the bottom of the session description, scan the QR code here, or go to bit.ly/I2 certificate. Bit.ly shorteners are case sensitive, so please be sure to use all uppercase letters. Hear what insight other I2 attendees and presenters might have on this session and other breakout sessions by connecting with the Innovation Institute community on Facebook or Twitter at I2 Estale or in Attendify's interactive features. And don't forget to mark your calendar for June 8th and 9th to join us for I2 2022. Thank you.